and then we'll start. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all well and staying warm. It's a beautiful spring day here in Auckland. I feel like we've turned a corner, kind of. We haven't had quite as much rain. I feel like my lawn is slightly drying out. What about everybody else? Less rain, do you think? Well, there was a bit of a storm last night. So this week, as my title page, I have put up a picture of the Prunus campanulata, the Taiwan cherry, because I have one of these in my garden, and there are a couple of tui that are visiting it all the time at the moment, fighting over it. As you know, tui are very territorial. So when that tree comes into bloom, it's kind of, I feel like we've turned a corner at last and spring is coming, and I just really enjoy the birds. I have to say though, Prunus campanulata is a pest plant in some parts of the country. So when I planted mine, I thought there was a sterile variety that had come out, which means one that isn't going to produce seed when the birds poop out the seed, that the seed's not going to grow. But I am not actually sure that I do have a sterile variety. So it hasn't been banned in Auckland yet for sale, but I think in Northland, you actually can't buy this plant. It's very beautiful though, as many weeds are. Does anyone else grow it? Just feel free to also put comments in the chat. I will try and remember to look as we go. I'll just open it up to the side. So this week I thought I would start with a little bit of a riddle. So I have a picture of dinosaurs, a T-Rex, and I can't remember the name of the other one. It's something quite Quetzalcoatlon. I know my two sons will know this. So two dinosaurs in the Cretaceous period, because there is also a plant I'm about to talk about now that evolved in the Cretaceous period. So it was a cohort of the dinosaurs, and I wondered if anybody knew what that plant might be. It's a type of tree, and it's flowering at the moment. Some have been blooming for about a month or so, but they're really coming into their season. Another clue is that they evolved before bees existed. So these plants evolved and they were pollinated by beetles. So they have different types of flowers from other trees. Anybody know what it is? Feel free, if you like, to write it in the chat, what you think the answer might be. I'll give you 5 seconds and then we'll move on. Anyone got any ideas? All right, so the answer is the dinosaur flower is the magnolia. So it's magnolias that evolved to be pollinated by beetles. This is just a picture of the source of magnolia, Magnolia solangiana, which I grew up with. And I kind of feel like it was the magnolia that was the most popular in New Zealand, would you think, for quite a long time? But now, of course, there are many other types of species of magnolias that we widely grow. So I wanted to talk a little bit about magnolias since it's magnolia season. And I think, there's so much anticipation about magnolias, isn't there? Because they have those beautiful fuzzy buds, which are really tough. And that was to stop beetles eating them before they'd bloomed. You get that sage green bud that then opens out into the absolutely glorious satiny flower. Now, these are magnolia fossils of the fruit of the flower, which has the seed inside it. So if you grow magnolias, you might see some of these seeds on yours, which I do on mine periodically. So I think this one's about 15 million years old, whereas the Cretaceous period, I think, was about 100 and something million years ago. But I thought that was interesting that someone's taken a picture side by side. So I guess that's how they've worked out how old magnolias are. So there's 210 members in the genus. So that's like 210 species within the magnolia genus. So there's many kinds. They originate from Asia. And it's important to note that I'm talking about deciduous magnolias, which flower from around July to September. There are the evergreen ones, which have the big white flowers like Magnolia grandiflora, and those are more of summer flowering types of trees. So I wanted to talk, obviously I'm not going to talk to you about all 210 species, so many hundreds of varieties of magnolias, but we have got particularly good at breeding them in New Zealand. There are a couple of really well-known magnolia breeding families in New Plymouth. So there's the Jury family. Mark Jury's is a magnolia breeder, and his father, Felix Jury, bred magnolias before him. So they have a very famous magnolia that Mark named after his father called Felix Jury, which grows into a really big tree. But I thought I'd focus on some of the smaller ones. I have quite a small section, so I grow the smaller ones. So my sister and I have got an argument about which small magnolia is better. And my favorite is this one that you can see on the screen called Jeannie. Grows 2 meters high to 1 meter wide. So and it can be grown in a pot, like you grow it in a big wine barrel. So I think I've actually shown that picture on the right before, but it's an absolutely gorgeous magnolia. Like many magnolias, it kind of flowers a little bit out of season as well, which is a quirk that you'll get the odd flower throughout the year. And of the 4 magnolias I grow, this one is one that you'll see flowers on from time to time throughout the year when it's not in season. Oh, now, Georgie, I just say I note that there's a comment that there's bad sound quality, but it's okay for you.
It's good for me. Yes, it could just be your internet connection.
Yeah.
How's yours, Dawn? Thumbs up for everyone else. Is the sound okay? Yeah, looks like it. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
And I see there's a question there, so I'll answer that shortly as well. So this is Jeannie, which is my favorite. And then my sister in Napier, she likes Cleopatra. Slightly bigger magnolia, grows taller, 3.5 meters high times 2 meters wide. It has a very pretty goblet-shaped flower, I have to say. And it's kind of it's more a fuchsia pink than Jeannie, whereas Jeannie's got more of those burgundy tones in it. Something that I've seen growing under magnolias, which looks amazing. I grow a large magnolia called Star Wars, which is a big pink, kind of pale candy pink one. But there's Loropetalum. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a shrub which has kind of fluffy pink flowers. And there's a house I've seen. The house is grey. They've got the big pink magnolias growing in front of it. And then they've got Loropetalum growing to about 1 to 2 meters high under the trunk. I'll have to sneakily take a photo of it, but I've always been so impressed with that colour combo. And I wanted to talk to you about yellow magnolias because they're really special. And we rented for years and years and then finally managed to buy a house in Auckland and with a lot of help. And my dream with buying our own home was that I could plant a yellow magnolia. And so as soon as we did, I bought honey tulip, which is bred by the Jury. So that's one of their magnolias. And I actually wanted to say, just going back to Cleopatra and Jeannie, they were bred by the same New Zealand breeder called Vance Hooper, who's in New Plymouth. And they both won like top awards at the International Tree of the Year Awards. So I think Jeannie won in 2011 and Cleopatra won Best Plant, Blessed New Tree in 2013. So, you know, it's like the Plant Olympics. Yeah, we've got some champion magnolia breeders in this country. So going back to these ones, it was actually some plant breeders at the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens in New York that managed to successfully breed yellow magnolias, though I do think there is one species in China that grows in the wild, but they've created new varieties. So I grow honey tulip, and butterflies on the right is another really beautiful magnolia. Honey tulip, I've noticed, takes a while to get going, and I talked to a woman who grows hundreds of magnolias near Whangarei for a story, for an article I was writing for a magazine, and she said that that was true of that magnolia. So I think I planted it about 5 years ago, and it's always had flowers, but it's just now that it's really taken off that I get a really good bloom. And if you like fragrance, the stellata magnolias, which are Japanese rather than from China, they have a really lovely light, kind of clovey, carnation-y maybe type fragrance. And they grow to about 1.5 meters high to 2.5 meters wide. They're quite kind of shrubby magnolias. So they're also a lovely option. And they have quite a floppy petal form. And stellata, which is, they're called magnolia stellata. Stellata means star, so that known as the star magnolias. Now, someone's just asked which magnolia makes the best hedge in Christchurch. And I have to say that I haven't really seen a magnolia hedge, but Michaelias, which I think are related to magnolias, you do see those as hedging. And Bubbles is a really good one. So that evergreen. Bubbles is kind of burgundy and white, and it's also known to smell like juicy fruit chewing gum. But I think you really have to get your face up really close to get to smell them. I can't say I've stood near them and really noticed the fragrance. But yeah, so that's a really nice one, and I think you can clip it quite tightly. Now, I like alliteration, so I kind of thought of today's session as magnolias and microgreens. So I thought I'd talk about microgreens because that's something that I've been growing recently. So microgreens are basically the small seedlings of plants, but you eat them when they're only, about 5 to 7 centimeters high. And they're really good for you because they're really dense in nutrients. So the best way to grow microgreens is that you would buy the microgreen seeds, because you can't eat all vegetables as young plants. For example, plants in the nightshade family, like tomatoes, you wouldn't grow those as microgreens. They're slightly toxic at a smaller stage. But other plants that you can buy a special microgreen seed are beetroot. Bull's blood's a really good one. In that picture, bull's blood looks a bit like that kind of purple leaf one you can see. Coriander makes a nice spicy microgreen. Mustard cress, which I think, we've all probably had a go at some stage in our childhoods of growing mustard cress, because it germinates in just a couple of days, so it's really satisfying. And yeah, there's a huge variety actually, and I've also just grown coriander. So microgreens are really good because you can grow them in a really small space on a sunny windowsill. They're something you want to grow inside. They take about 2 weeks till they're ready to eat, and then all you need to do is snip them, and you can put them in sandwiches, you could sprinkle them in salads, and you can even put them in stir fries. And scientific studies have shown that they are quite dense in phytochemicals, which are meant to be good for us and for our immunity as well. So if you want to grow microgreens, I'd get some special microgreen seed. It's at all garden stores or places like Mitre 10 or Bunnings. And you really only need about 1 centimetre of soil or you could grow them on just damp paper towel, to be honest. I just grew some the other day. I got some mushrooms from the supermarket, and I have one of those kind of potato card bases. I just put a little bit of seed raising mix in the bottom of that, not even a centimetre's worth. Spritz it. It's quite good if you've got a spritzer for keeping it evenly damp. You could always rinse out a spray bottle a couple of times. Spritz it and then sprinkle your seed on top. I like to sprinkle, you do sprinkle it quite thickly because you want a nice thick crop, unlike if you were growing your microgreens in the garden as, you know, the vegetables that they're actually intended to be. And then you just keep them in a warm, sunny spot. You want to keep them moist, so make sure you spritz them daily. And you can kind of, you know, they'll grow their fruit, they'll start germinating. I say most kind of have produced their seed leaves, which are the first leaves, in about 5 days, and you want to harvest them when they've produced their second set of leaves, which we call the true leaves. So that's when you can harvest them. If you were to just put microgreen seed in your garden and spread it out, it would just grow into the plant. So for example, beetroot bull's blood, that would actually turn into a beetroot if you were to leave it. Now, I just wanted to demonstrate here, this picture on the left just shows how you can kind of grow microgreens in any kind of container, really. As you can see, there's barely any, I don't even think there's any soil at the base of that one. So you could just grow them on damp paper towel. And there's just another nice picture. I've been growing, as you can see, like those ones in the middle on the left in that picture with the grid, they are a type of pea. And the ones down the bottom, that looks like, might be a type of amaranth. You can grow an amaranth as a red microgreen. So that they actually look really pretty. They're quite a cool idea for a gift for someone. And and there's just a picture too of how thickly you scatter them when you sow them. And I just wanted to share something with you. I've been working on a children's book with gardening activities for children, as well as other things to do outside, like making sand saucers. But one of the things we did was grew Hulk, what I call in the book Hulk hands. So we cut out a template of a hand, sewed mustard microgreen really thickly, as you can see in the picture. It's my son's hand. So you can see them there. So they're kind of growing in a template. So we traced around his hand, and there's the result, which I called them Hulk hands, as in the Incredible Hulk, because it quickly grew much bigger than his own hand. So if you've got any grandchildren that are visiting, that can be quite a fun activity to do with them. Something else that's fun is that you can grow microgreens if you've got enough space in the initials. So I'm Rachel Clare, and I would scratch out an R and a C, or you can do it on cotton wool. You could form R and C out of cotton wool and keep it damp, and then sprinkle your seed on top of that. So that's another really fun gardening activity. I don't think you even need to be a kid to enjoy doing that. I think out of all the 50 activities I've done in my book, this was one of the most satisfying. So I just wanted to talk about what to do in the garden right now. And some of this is the same as last time, because we're still in that kind of slowly coming out of winter season, and some of you weren't here last time. So one thing that you could do right now is plant lilies. So if you want lilies for Christmas, you could maybe wait about a month, but if Christmas lilies take around 100 to 110 days to flower from planting the bulbs. There's some amazing bulb suppliers who sell a really incredible range of lilies online. There's Bulbs Direct. I would recommend them if you like buying your plants online. These ones are Lilium regale, that's the species, and that's the trumpet lily, which some of us tend to think of as the Christmas lily. There's also the Asiatic white lily that other people call Christmas lilies. So I'd be keen to know what you consider a Christmas lily. I kind of consider it that one on the right with the pink on it. Now, lilies are wonderful for growing in pots. So really great if you don't have a lot of growing space. They like to be planted about 10 centimeters below the surface of the soil. They have quite dense root structures. So make sure, that you do plant them quite deep. And when I grow them in pots, I use a good quality potting mix. Like something that you can add Osmocote to, which is a type of fertilizer. I plant them about 10 centimeters deep, and then I put a bit of blood and bone on top. I got that tip from a pro lily grower. And you can always start them off like that, and then you could move them into a garden bed if you wanted once they start germinating. So that I wanted to share. These are some of my favorites. This is in my garden. This is a type of tiger lily, but I think they were called baby tiger because they're not as tall as the traditional tiger lilies. I don't know if anyone remembers, but in Alice in Wonderland, there's a talking tiger lily, I think. So I quite like growing these and growing them in a row in pots. Now, lilies are really toxic to animals. So that is something to keep in mind. I think probably more if you have a dog rather than a cat. I have a cat and I still grow lilies and I just risk it. The other thing that's a risk about lilies, as you will know, is our clothing. So if you're growing lilies and you're picking them to bring inside, always make sure you cut the stamens off. My cousin told me a story about going to her friend's wedding and they hadn't cut the stamens off the lilies and the wedding gown was covered in pollen, like the front of it, and they couldn't get it off. So other things to do right now, we talked about this last time, but if you're getting ready to plant your summer crops, you can check any old seeds you've got lying around for viability. So if you've got some old packets and you're not sure if they're going to germinate, you can sprinkle the seeds on paper towel and make sure it's damp, and then put it in a Ziploc bag in a warm spot. Keep it moist, and then in about 10 days, you'll be able to see if they're going to germinate. And if only half of them germinate, I'd put the whole packet in the garden because you know that only about half of them are going to grow. And then with beans and peas and corn, you can always check whether they're viable by putting them in a bowl of water, because if they sink, they'll germinate, but if they float, they're not going to do anything, and you can put them in your compost. Don't forget to plant potatoes. We talked about potato grow bags last time, and I just planted some, and they're now about 5 centimeters halfway up the bag. So I need to add about 10 centimeters more mix on top, so they keep growing up and don't go green. And yeah, if you're buying potatoes, I bought some and they actually had quite good shoots on them. But if they haven't got them and it's really cold where you are, you can lay them out in an egg carton, kind of in a warm, airy spot, and wait. And it's called chitting, but wait for them to grow shoots and then plant them out. And that just gives them a nice head start. And don't forget to prepare your beds for spring. So, even though we were a little while away from planting summer crops like tomatoes, I won't really be planting mine till around Labour weekend. You can add compost, sheep pellets, blood and bone. You might have a new area you want to develop. And that's all from me. I'm going to answer this question. Some of my lilies grow very thick and deformed. What is causing this? I don't know the answer to that. I can look that up for you and come back with an answer next time. I mean, I think if that was happening, I would potentially dig them up and move them to a different spot. Lilies like around 6 hours of sunlight, but some, they do like a bit of shade as well. Are the lilies in a pot? I wonder if the pot is too small, and that could be part of it. So if you are growing them in a pot, I would dig them up, add some really nice, good quality potting mix, and no pot. I don't know. Let me do some research and I'll come back next time. I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. And then there was a question. Oh, someone's got 8 magnolias at Woodcote. Oh, right. That's how many are. That's not true. That's how many residents are watching. A geranium's perennial or annual in Christchurch? I think geraniums are, if you're talking about pelargoniums, which are technically, well, what we call geraniums, but technically they're pelargoniums, they're perennials. They last all the time. So, I mean, I think unless you got a really cold frost and they were growing outside in a garden bed, they might die off, which then could mean that they were an annual. But I think any geranium that's in a sunny spot will just keep flowering. They're really, really hardy plants. Did anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you for coming today. Hopefully we have lots more nice weather and can get into spring, and we can go and see daffodils and magnolias blooming, and some of my corfai are slowly getting buds on them. So next time I see you, we'll be fully into spring. So have a lovely month, and I will see you then. Bye.